Come with me. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl sleeping at a bus stop. What he did the next day changed their lives forever. Snow fell thick and quiet over New York that night, painting the city in a blanket of white. The wind hissed through the buildings, carrying a cold so sharp it cut straight to the bone. Michael Reynolds, 32, stepped out of a glass tower on Park Avenue with the weight of a long, brutal business meeting still clinging to him. Known as the youngest CEO to conquer Wall Street, he had built his empire on precision, logic, and emotional detachment. But tonight, something in him refused the warm luxury car waiting at the curb. He waved off his driver and chose to walk, letting the icy air sting his senses. As he turned down a quiet block near his hotel, the flicker of a street lamp caught something on a bus stop bench. A small, curled-up figure beneath its faded yellow glow. Child. He slowed. A little girl, no more than 4, huddled inside a coat far too big for her, wearing only a thin cotton dress underneath. Her cheeks were flushed raw from cold, her lips tinged blue, her tangled hair dusted with snow. She was asleep. Or trying to be. A jolt of alarm shot through him. He crouched beside her and gently touched her shoulder. "Do you have a home?" he asked softly. "It's freezing. Come with me. I can take you somewhere warm." The little girl stirred. Her eyes blinked open, clear, wide, and calm. She looked at him with an innocence that held neither fear nor hesitation. "My mommy went to get dinner," she whispered. "But I'm not scared. You're here now. You're the miracle, right?" Michael froze. That word, miracle, cut through him like nothing ever had. She said it as if it were obvious. As if she had been waiting for him. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a crumpled photograph. "This is my mommy," she said. "She said she'll come back before the snow covers my shoes. Can you wait with me?" Michael glanced down. Snow was already gathering on the rubber edges of her sneakers. His chest twisted. Without a word, he took off his heavy wool coat and wrapped it around her tiny frame. She sank into it instantly like it was safety itself. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Laura," she murmured. She leaned into the warmth, and he sat beside her, shielding her from the wind. Time passed. He didn't know how long, but she began to relax beside him, as if his presence alone warmed the bench. "Do you really think I'm a miracle?" he asked quietly. Laura nodded. "Mommy says miracles are people who show up when no one else does." Something inside him cracked, something frozen for years. He stayed. A man and a little girl sitting in the falling snow. Waiting. Not knowing everything would change when her mother returned. Ava pulled her scarf tighter as she hurried down the snowy street. Her fingers were numb, the paper bag of warm porridge already damp in her hands. She had waited too long in the soup kitchen line. Too many people. Too little food. Too much uncertainty. She feared she'd been gone too long. Ava, 28, once a dreamer with a passion for cooking, had lost everything when her small bistro shut down during the pandemic. Bills piled up. Her apartment vanished. And the world had no place for a homeless mother and her child. But she survived. She always survived. When she turned the corner toward the old bus stop, she froze. A man sat beside Laura. Her daughter was wrapped in a massive wool coat. His coat, listening as he spoke softly to her. Ava's heart lurched. She dropped the food and ran. "Laura!" she cried, scooping the child into her arms. She held her tight, shielding her instinctively. The man immediately stepped back, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt her," he said calmly. "She was alone and cold. I just sat with her." Ava's eyes were fierce, scanning him. Expensive shirt, snow on his shoulders, face tense but sincere. He looked tired. Human. Not dangerous. But she didn't lower her guard. "You don't touch someone's child just because they look cold," she snapped. "I didn't touch her," he said softly. "Just gave her my coat." Laura peeked up at her mother. "Mommy, he's nice. He stayed with me." Ava hesitated. The coat was thick and warm, warmer than anything she could offer. And her daughter was no longer shaking. "Who are you?" she asked. "Michael," he said. "I was just walking by." Snowflakes collected on his hair, but he made no move to reclaim the coat. Ava studied him. His eyes weren't predatory. They weren't empty either. Just tired and kind. He spoke quietly. "There's a budget motel nearby. I can get you a room for the night. No names. No strings. You don't owe me anything." Ava stiffened. "I've heard that before. Nothing is free." "You're right," he said gently. "To be careful. But I'm offering anyway." After a long moment she nodded. They walked 4 blocks in silence. Laura sleepily whispered, "I like him, Mommy. He makes the air feel warm." At the motel, Michael handled the room quietly, discreetly. He handed Ava the key and stepped back, ready to leave. Then he felt a tiny tug on his sleeve. "Laura." Her eyes were bright. "Will you come back tomorrow? I still have more of the miracle story to tell." His heart tightened. "I'll try," he whispered. "I'd like to hear it." She smiled and returned to her mother. Outside, the city glowed white and still. And for the first time in years, Michael felt something real. Something warm. Something alive. He didn't want to walk away. The next morning, Michael sat in his office, unable to focus on anything. Not numbers. Not meetings. Not deals. His mind stayed with a little girl in his coat, and her mother who had fought the world with quiet strength. Without fully understanding why, he asked his assistant to run a discreet background check. Few hours later a file arrived. Ava Bennett, 28. Former line cook at a small Brooklyn restaurant closed by the pandemic. No criminal record. No red flags. Just a woman who had fallen through the cracks. And as Michael stared at the file, he realized something. Helping her wasn't just kindness. Felt like destiny. A millionaire CEO saw a little girl sleeping at a bus stop. What he did the next day changed their lives forever. Snow fell thick and quiet over New York that night, painting the city in white. The wind hissed between buildings, carrying the kind of cold that seeped through wool and bone. Michael Reynolds, 32, stepped out of a glass tower on Park Avenue, still carrying the weight of a tense business meeting. Known as the youngest CEO to dominate Wall Street, he had built his empire on precision and complete emotional detachment. Tonight, though, something in him refused the warm luxury car waiting for him. He waved off his driver and walked, letting the icy air clear his head. As he turned down a quiet block near his hotel, the flicker of a street lamp caught his eye. A small lone figure lay curled on a metal bench beneath the faded yellow glow of an old bus stop. It was a child. Michael slowed. The girl couldn't have been more than 4. She was huddled beneath a tattered coat far too big for her, wearing only a thin cotton dress underneath. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks raw from the cold, her lips tinged with blue. Whether she was asleep or only pretending to sleep, he couldn't tell. Alarm surged through him. He crouched beside the bench and gently touched her shoulder. "Do you have a home?" he asked softly. "It's freezing. Let me take you somewhere warm. Come with me." The girl stirred. Her eyes blinked open, clear, wide, steady. "My mommy went to look for dinner," she whispered. "I'm not scared. You're here now. You're the miracle, right?" Michael froze. That word, miracle, hit him harder than any investor ever had. She reached into an old backpack and pulled out a crumpled photograph. "This is my mommy," she said. "She said she'd be back before the snow covers my shoes." Michael looked down. Snow was already gathering on the rubber edges of her sneakers. Without a word, he pulled off his heavy wool coat and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. She sank into it instantly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Laura." She nestled into the warmth. "Me and Mommy stay here sometimes. The light helps me sleep." Michael looked around. No mother. No warmth. Just wind and white silence. He wanted to call someone, anyone. But he didn't. He stayed. "Do you really think I'm a miracle?" he asked softly. Laura nodded. "Mommy says miracles are people who show up when no one else does." and something inside him cracked. They sat together in the falling snow, a man and a little girl, waiting, both unaware that her mother was already hurrying toward them, and that nothing in Michael's life would ever be the same again. Ava pulled her scarf tighter as the wind howled through the alley beside the soup kitchen. Snow clung to her lashes. Her fingers were numb. The paper bag in her hands held 2 small containers of warm porridge, tonight's dinner for her and Laura. She had been gone longer than usual. The line at the kitchen had stretched around the block. But she waited, grateful for whatever they could give. Ava Bennett, 28, once a dreamer with a passion for cooking, now lived by one rule. Never beg, never demand, just survive. When she turned onto the block where the bus stop stood, she froze. A man sat beside Laura. Her daughter was wrapped in his expensive wool coat. Ava dropped the bag and rushed forward. "Laura!" She grabbed her daughter, arms trembling. The man stood but didn't approach. His hands lifted, palms open. "I'm not here to hurt her," he said. She was alone. Cold. "You don't get to touch someone's child just because they look cold," Ava snapped. "I didn't touch her. I just gave her my coat." Laura stirred. "Mommy, he's nice. He stayed with me. He's warm like cocoa." Ava studied the man. Young. Clean-shaven. Snow dusting his shoulders. His eyes held no malice, just exhaustion. "Who are you?" "My name is Michael," he said. "I was just walking by." He didn't ask for his coat back. He just stood there in the freezing air, shivering. Ava hesitated. "Fine. Stay for now. But don't try anything." "I won't." They sat together on the bench. Ava, Laura in her lap, and Michael a respectful distance away. After a long silence, Ava murmured, "Thank you for staying." "No child should be alone in this cold," he said. She looked at him, really looked. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel entirely alone. Later, Michael offered them a safe night at a budget motel. Ava hesitated, suspicious. But in the end she agreed. Just one night. As Michael turned to leave, he felt a small tug on his sleeve. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Laura whispered. "I have more of the miracle story to tell." Michael's chest tightened. "I'll try," he said. And he meant it. The next day he couldn't focus. He kept seeing Ava, strong, quiet, resilient. So he did something he never thought he'd do. He asked his assistant to run a discreet background check. Ava Bennett, 28, former line cook. Restaurant shut down during the pandemic. Clean record. 1 eviction. Frequent visitor at shelters. Life had chewed her up, but she had never lost her dignity. That evening, he found her working at the community kitchen, one quietly funded by his own company. She served food with a grace that made the room feel warmer. He offered her a small paying role there. She accepted on her terms. That night, he followed her as she delivered leftovers to people sleeping in the streets. He watched as she wrapped her coat around an older homeless man and whispered, "People shouldn't die cold, no matter their mistakes." Michael stood still, breath caught. She reminded him of his mother. Their nightly ritual began, delivering meals, sharing stories, cleaning, laughing. Laura nicknamed him Mr. Snowman, because he always brought her mints. What Michael didn't tell them was that he had bought an old cafe space that morning. A place he envisioned as Ava's future. A warm shop called The Hearth, where second chances simmered like soup. He planned to give it to her anonymously. Until the day she overheard him. Ava froze at the sound of his voice in the hallway. "We've finalized the purchase. The Hearth will open on schedule. No need to mention my name." Ava still doesn't know. Her blood ran cold. Michael Reynolds. The billionaire. The man who had washed dishes beside her. She stepped out just as he ended the call. Their eyes met. "You lied to me," she whispered. "I didn't lie," he said. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's not better." "Ava, I wasn't trying to trick you. I wanted to be real with you. Not the title. Not the name." She shook her head, voice cracking. "You made me feel like I mattered. Like I earned what you gave. But now I see I was just a project. Another quiet donation. No, he said, stepping forward, voice rough. You're wrong. You were never a project. You were. He stopped, breath shaking, heart exposed.